Jody Hardesty with Empowered Heart Connections. Many people in relationships get to a point where they've decided that they want to take it to the next level. And often that means moving in together. There's a lot of questions that people need to explore to evaluate whether or not they're ready to take this step. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is those questions that are necessary to explore if moving in together is the right step and how to navigate if it's even not the right step. So some of the questions we're going to talk about are communication and expectations, financial readiness, lifestyle compatibility, emotional readiness, conflict resolution, logistics, and practicalities. So those are some of the questions that the headers of the questions that we're going to look into today and really explore kind of what that means and what that looks like for you and for your potential living partner. All right. So the first questions to explore are communications and expectations. How, first of all, whenever you are having conflicts, or are you able to communicate openly with each other? Are you comfortable addressing issues? And what does it mean for your relationship? So this is a conversation to have, is what does it mean for our relationship when we move in together? Does that mean we're on a higher level of commitment? Does that mean we're moving towards marriage? Does that mean we're going to see how it goes when we move in together? What does that look like as far as those responsibilities go living together? Are you sharing it mutually? Are you maybe one who makes more money paying more than the other? So it brings up a whole lot of conversations to explore, and are you comfortable navigating those conversations with the communication styles that you have at this point? Other things like, how will we divide the chores for the house? How do we have responsibilities? Does somebody do the outside jobs? Does somebody do the inside jobs? Do we split it down the middle? Do we have a chore chart? What does that look like? And what does it look like individually in your own homes? And can you combine those two lifestyles that you guys are accustomed to? What does it look like when you have personal space, and how often do you need that? This is something I think a lot of couples overlook, is that it's great to have someone that you love close to you more frequently, and some couples really thrive with that, but sometimes they miss the fact that we still need some individual space and time for ourselves to kind of decompress and be alone as well. So some couples navigate this by being alone together. So maybe they are one's reading a book and the other one is on the computer, or the other one's playing the piano, but that having those conversations that you're comfortable to say, hey, I just need some time. I'm just going to go read a book. You don't have to entertain me or keep me interacting with me. I'm good to just be reading my book, and you're good to go do whatever you want to do. So that's even exploring, like, how do you be alone together in the house? Especially if someone doesn't have a place to go and somebody needs some personal space time. So those are all really important conversations and expectations to explore, so that you can be prepared whenever things kind of do come up like that. Like, hey, we're maybe spending a little more time together than I feel like is great for our relationship. And that's important to be able to navigate that, because that is some of the characteristics of a healthy relationship, is being able to come together and share with what's working and what's not working. So the other piece is financial readiness. So this can be a point of contention in many relationships, but particularly when you're living together, if one of you is a super spender and one of you is a super saver, that might need to be navigated before you decide whether that's a great move to move forward living together. What is the budget for rent and utilities and shared expenses, and how do you divvy that up? How do you split the expenses? Again, is it 50-50, or does one make more than the other? So you want it maybe a little different, or maybe one compensates in some area, like, hey, I'll do more of the yard work if you pay a little bit more, since we make a little different money. But navigating how to explore those financial differences so that it doesn't become a point of contention later on in the relationship, which, again, finances can be a real doozy. And this also means that you're going to have to discuss your financial habits with each other. So what does that look like? Are you comfortable enough together to open up your bank accounts and kind of share what that looks like, share what your spending habits are, share what your saving habits are, and discuss debt and what that looks like for the two of you. Some people are perfectly comfortable having debt and paying off credit cards and paying interest, and some people are completely opposed to that. So those are some really important issues to navigate, so it doesn't again become a conflict later on in the relationship. So really getting clarity about what those details are of the finances. The other part is lifestyle compatibility. So how does your day go? What's your daily routine look like? And is that compatible with the person that you're going to want to live with? Do you have similar desires for cleanliness and organization? And if you don't, are you willing to kind of compromise and find a middle ground? And what does that look like? So really exploring. I mean, I think a lot of people think they're cleaner than they are or more organized than they are. So to really dig into, okay, how organized are you? Do you have like a specific place where you put the mail every day? Or do you have a location for your keys and your sunglasses? Or are you kind of a little more spontaneous with where you put things? Or what does the pantry need to look like? Does it have to have the mustard in a certain spot? Or does it have to have things organized in a certain way? And what does that look like? Because again, there are different preferences for organization and what that looks like. Sometimes I have different preferences and perspectives than my husband. Like he thinks, like I've said before, the mustard has a certain spot in the refrigerator, but to me, the mustard just goes where there's a hole. So really establishing what that looks like for you guys as far as organization goes. And if you're, again, willing to meet your partner where they're at, like, hey, okay, my husband likes the mustard in a certain spot, and it's actually a lot easier to find when I put it there. So I've kind of gone along with that. Like, okay, that actually makes sense when you have a little bit of structure. It's easier to organize things, and that actually works well for me too. So I'll go along with that. But some people have a real consistent like cleaning schedule. Like you need to clean the bathroom every week, and you need to wash the sheets twice a week. And what does that look like for you guys? So really navigating pretty thoroughly what those organizations and those really cleanliness kind of patterns and behaviors look like, so that you are on the same page with that. And as far as hosting guests, family, what will that look like? Are you comfortable if your partner invites their family to stay without consulting you? Is that something that you want to be involved with? And how do you plan for that? And if they aren't comfortable with having your family over, or you're not comfortable with having their family over, how are you going to navigate that? And are you both compatible when it comes to hosting guests, hosting parties? This is one of those challenges with couples that are, one's an introvert and one's an extrovert. One maybe just loves having people over all the time, and the other's like, oh, I'd rather not do that at all. So finding that balance with, are you going to be able to have a middle ground there where, hey, maybe we'll host things, once a month instead of 4 times a month, or twice a month instead of 4 times a month, if you're willing to come to those middle grounds. And how do you feel about pets and each other's hobbies and lifestyle preferences? So those are all really important things to understand. If one of you is a real pet lover and one of you has maybe 5 cats and the other one doesn't, that may be a potential deal breaker for that compatibility for living together. So making sure you explore what that looks like. And if your partner has a craft hobby that takes up the entire living room, is that going to work for you? Or is your partner willing to maybe shift it to the craft room, so that's a little more manageable? And then one of the most important pieces is, are you emotionally ready to move in together? And why do we want to move in together? What does that mean when we move in together? Is that because we want to spend more time together? Is that because we want to have less financial expenses? What is the reasoning behind it? Is it because we feel like this is a higher level of commitment? What does that mean to you to live with someone? And again, how do you handle stress individually and as a couple in that dynamic? Are you, again, able to communicate those things? Are you able to explore things when they come up? Are you able to talk about your emotions with your partner? Are you able to share how you're feeling? And how do they respond to that? Are they able to validate and understand your feelings? And if not, that's some really important work that should probably be done before you maybe navigate living in the same place. And are we prepared to compromise and come to a agreement about the things that we disagree with, and find a way to cohabitate together in a way that's the most fulfilling and productive and would mitigate some of those pitfalls that maybe would cause more conflict down the line if we are living together. And have we discussed our future goals and what this looks like if we're living together and maybe we have a really good relationship, but maybe living together causes too much conflict? What does that look like? If that happens, do you feel comfortable then living separately and still maintaining a relationship? Or does that mean you're just not compatible? What does that look like for the two of you? And that can be a really important conversation to have is, hey, why are we moving in together and what does that look like if this doesn't work out? And what if it does work out? If we do decide that, hey, living together works out really well, we're really compatible, what does that mean? Does that mean you want to take it to the next level? Is marriage on the table? Is it not on the table? So those are really, again, some helpful topics to make sure that you are navigating very clearly. How do you cope with your emotions and your emotional regulation? And then, of course, a part of all of that is conflict resolution. Is if one of you does feel overwhelmed or unhappy, how do you navigate that? Do you talk about it? Do you need space? Do you have a conversation about it? Do you just sit and listen and validate each other? And do you have kind of a plan of action whenever you are having conflict? Is, hey, whenever we have conflict, we really need to share our feelings and really validate each other and then talk about what kind of a solution would be, or what does that look like for you and your partner? And again, if it doesn't work out, that's another thing that you guys need to be prepared for is what does that look like? And again, maintaining that individuality when you are living together. How does that work? Do you have time where you're maybe out with other friends and you don't do everything together? How do you maintain that connection with each other, but also still maintain your individuality while you are living together? And last but not least, logistics and practicalities. So where do we want to live? And how does that affect us where we're living? Are we closer to your work? Are we closer to my work? What kind of furniture and belongings are we going to have? Or decor? How are we going to decorate? Right? Do you like the bear rug on the wall, or are you kind of a pretty flower wall decor kind of person? So finding those little middle grounds can be challenging, especially if you have an opposing decor design eye. Do you want love seats? Do you want to share couches? Do you want to bring his furniture or your furniture? And are you both on the lease? Do we understand the terms of the lease? And what does that mean if one of us wants to leave and the other one wants to stay? How do we navigate that as far as legal goes, lease-wise? And then how long do we envision in living in this particular space? Is this a temporary space that we're starting out in, or are we going to jump right in and buy something together? How does that look like for you? And what's the best way to kind of move forward in the least challenging way, which is a challenge in itself. So I hope this has been helpful. Again, there's lots of questions to explore, and the more information that you have, the more information and time you spend working on navigating these things, the better the likelihood of your success will be. And it's also possible that you may come to the conclusion that we're not ready to move in yet, and that's okay too. It's all gathering information. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this has been helpful.